football standout who was found dead after the 4th of July weekend. Now, this case has drawn national attention, and now 2 civil rights figures are getting involved.
Just want to know. We just want to know what happened and why our baby didn't come home. Like that's our biggest thing.
On July 4th, an 18-year-old boy vanished on an island with no way to call for help. 2 days later, they pulled his body out of the water. But here's the part that should really bother you. Someone deleted the messages off his phone before his own mother could even read them. If you're new here, welcome to Crime Files, the place where we break down cases like this one and try to make sense of what happened. Hit subscribe and tap that bell right now. Because if you leave without doing that, you're going to miss the next case. And trust me, you don't want to miss what we cover on this channel. Okay, let's get into it. His name was Nolan Xavier Wells, 18 years old, from Ocean Springs, Mississippi. If you know anything about Ocean Springs, it's one of those small, tight-knit Gulf Coast towns where everybody kind of knows everybody. Nolan wasn't some random kid either. He was a football player, a wide receiver, and he was heading into his second season playing for Southwest Mississippi Community College. That's not nothing. That's a young man with a future, with a plan, with people counting on him to show up to practice in a few weeks. His mom, Christine Wansley, said the last time she heard from him was July 3rd, the night before all of this happened. He cooked dinner for his parents. Think about that for a second. An 18-year-old boy on the edge of adulthood, still coming home to cook for his mom and dad. Then he went to a friend's house to stay the night before their 4th of July plans. Before he left, he told her, "Hey, Mom, I'm about to go. I love you." Gave her a hug, a kiss, and walked out the door. That was the last time she saw her son alive. Friends described Nolan as easygoing, not a fighter, not someone who liked drama or arguments. His mom later said it herself. Nolan was not someone who liked fights. He really didn't even like arguments. Keep that in your mind, because it's going to matter later. On July 4th, Nolan headed out with a group of his high school friends for a boat trip to Horn Island. Now, if you've never heard of Horn Island, it's not like your typical beach hangout spot. It's a barrier island about 10 miles off the Mississippi coast, and it is completely uninhabited. No houses, no stores, no lifeguards, no cell service. You can only get there by private boat, and once you're there, you're on your own. It's beautiful, it's remote, and it's the kind of place where if something goes wrong, help is not just around the corner. In photos from that day, you can see Nolan on the boat with his friends, his arms slung around their shoulders, smiling big for the camera like any teenager celebrating a holiday. But there's something else people notice in those photos too. Nolan appears to be the only black young man in that entire friend group. Hold on to that detail too, because it becomes a huge part of this story later on. For most of the day, it was just a normal holiday hangout. Boats out on the water, kids swimming, everybody soaking up the sun. But sometime around 4:30 in the afternoon, things started to shift. The boat Nolan and his friends were on started taking on water. There was an issue with the bilge pump, so the group made the call to head back to the mainland, except Nolan didn't go with them. Now here's where the story starts to split into 2 different directions, and this is where it gets uncomfortable. According to Nolan's friends, he told them he was going to stay behind on the island to talk to a young woman he'd met that day. But according to that same young woman, Nolan told her the opposite, that he was heading back to get on the boat with the guys. 2 completely different stories about the last real conversation anyone had with him before he disappeared. So picture this. It's getting later in the day. The boat with his friends pulls away from Horn Island, heading back to shore. And Nolan Wells, this 18-year-old kid who loves his family and just wants to enjoy his summer, stays behind on a remote, unstaffed island in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. Alone, that night, one of the friends who'd been on the boat, a young man named Warren, called the Coast Guard to report Nolan missing. That call came in around 11 p.m., and separately, Nolan's own mother called the sheriff's office around midnight, frantic, because her son wasn't answering and wasn't home. 2 different people, 2 different calls, both trying to find the same missing boy. Early Sunday morning, Christine posted on Facebook, pleading for help. She wrote that people should please be on the lookout for Nolan, and said it was unclear if he'd even made it back to land. Can you imagine sending that message about your own child, not knowing if he's stranded on an island, lost in the water, or something worse? By this point, this wasn't just one agency looking for him. This became a full-blown search operation. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office got involved. So did the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources. The U.S. Coast Guard joined in. The Gulf Islands National Seashore Park Service sent people out. And even volunteers from a group called the United Cajun Navy came out to help comb the water and the shoreline. For 2 days, that search continued. 2 days of Nolan's family sitting at home, waiting by the phone, praying for a call that says he's okay. 2 days of hoping that maybe he got stranded, maybe his phone died, maybe he's just waiting somewhere for a boat to come get him. Then on Monday, July 6th, a National Park Service agent found him, face down in the water, right off the shoreline of Horn Island. Christine confirmed her son's death in a social media post that broke hearts across the entire Gulf Coast. She wrote that she and Nolan's father, Elmore, along with her family and friends, were absolutely devastated. She said her heart was broken for her sweet son, an 18-year-old boy who cooked dinner for his parents 2 nights before, who told his mom he loved her before walking out that door for the last time, was now gone. Now here's where the story stops being just a tragic accident and starts becoming something the entire country is watching. When the coroner examined Nolan's body, there were no immediate, obvious signs of trauma or injury, no clear signs of a struggle. But because of the uncertain circumstances, a young man vanishing on a remote island and turning up dead 2 days later, the coroner sent the body to the state medical examiner's office for a full autopsy, specifically to check for any signs of foul play. And then the sheriff's department said something that lit social media on fire. They released a statement saying no foul play was suspected. Now think about how that lands on a grieving family. They haven't even gotten toxicology results back yet. They don't even have an official cause of death. And already law enforcement is publicly leaning toward this was just an accident. Nothing to see here. Nolan's mother said it made her and her husband deeply uncomfortable. She asked, "Why are we so quick to rush to this?" Because remember what we said earlier, Nolan was the only black young man in that entire friend group on the boat that day. And in Mississippi, a state with long, painful history when it comes to race, that detail did not go unnoticed. People online started asking hard questions. Was there something that happened on that island that nobody's talking about? Did Nolan get into some kind of confrontation before he vanished? Why did his friends leave without him? Why did it take so long for anyone to realize he never made a home? And it turns out, those questions weren't coming from nowhere, because pretty soon, a video started circulating. This video was recorded near Horn Island on July 4th, and in it, you can hear someone yelling, like they're in the middle of a heated argument. Once this video hit social media after news of Nolan's death broke, people were convinced they were hearing the moments right before something happened to him. One of Nolan's friends, a young man named Tracyston Shepard, spoke out and said that voice yelling in the video wasn't Nolan's at all. He said it was actually his own voice on that recording. But then, civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who the Wells family brought on to represent them, said his team has a different video. And in this one, Crump claims you can actually hear Nolan Wells himself, asking for his phone back. Crump says other people who were present on the island that day identified that voice as Nolan's. So now we've got 2 different videos, 2 different explanations, and a family that doesn't know which version of events to believe. And here's where it gets stranger, and this is the part we open with. Nolan didn't have his phone with him when he disappeared. His friends had taken it with them when they left the island. Ben Crump said it's bizarre for a teenager to not have his phone in a situation like that. Nolan's mother ended up using an app called Life 360 to track the phone's location herself, and she found it at the house of one of the boys who owned the boat. She got to it before police did. But by the time the family got their hands on that phone, messages had already been deleted from it. Think about that. A missing teenager. A phone that gets taken away from him. Messages wiped clean before his own mother can even look through it. That's not the kind of detail that makes a grieving family feel at peace. That's the kind of detail that makes them start asking what exactly happened on that island. And who doesn't want them to know? Because the family didn't trust that they were getting the full truth from local authorities, they made a serious move. They flew Nolan's body all the way to Washington, D.C. to have an independent autopsy done, paid for in part by former NFL player and civil rights activist Colin Kaepernick. They wanted a doctor with zero ties to Mississippi law enforcement to examine their son's body and tell them, honestly, what happened to him. Ben Crump stood in front of cameras and said, "It is not adding up." He pointed out the contradiction between what the young woman said Nolan told her and what the friend said Nolan told them. He questioned how somebody could just vanish in broad daylight with other people around and nobody noticing anything was wrong. Because here's the thing about drowning. It's not always loud. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's fast and silent, nothing like what you see in movies. But for a family already suspicious of the story they're being told, that explanation alone isn't enough. Reverend Al Sharpton got involved too, standing beside the family at press conferences, calling for a transparent investigation. Filmmaker Tyler Perry stepped in to help cover funeral costs for a family that shouldn't have to worry about that on top of everything else. Even Spike Lee reportedly showed his support. This case has grown from a local Mississippi tragedy into a story with national attention because so many people are asking the same question. Are we getting the truth or are we getting the easy answer? As of right now, we still don't have official results. The independent autopsy from Washington, D.C. was supposed to come back around July 10th, but it got delayed because of issues flying Nolan's body. The state's own autopsy is also still pending, and toxicology results, which test for anything in the system, can take weeks to come back. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter has said the investigation is active, that his department is working with the FBI, and that tips from the public have actually pushed the case forward this past week. But he still hasn't given the family or any of us a real answer. Was this a tragic accident? Did Nolan simply misjudge those currents? Currents that the coroner himself admitted are dangerous around that part of the island. With a documented history of drownings over the years? Or is there something darker hiding underneath all of this? Nolan's friend Trey Siston said something that's honestly stuck with a lot of people. He said, "I think everybody needs to let the investigation continue and let the facts be shown. And if the facts show that somebody harmed Nolan, I hope that there is justice brought. And if it was a tragic accident and somebody didn't speak up, I still hope justice is brought." Then he said the part that really hits you. "I just know I've lost my best friend." That's the truth underneath all of this. Whatever the autopsy says, whatever the videos show, whatever conclusion this investigation eventually reaches, a mother lost her son, a father lost his boy, friends lost someone they loved, and a community in Ocean Springs is left holding on to more questions and answers, waiting for a truth that keeps getting delayed. So here's what I want you to sit with. Why do two groups of people, who were both there that day, tell two completely different stories about Nolan's last known plans? Why would a friend group leave the island without him and not raise alarm sooner? Why do messages disappear from a missing teenager's phone before his own mother can read them? And if this really was just a tragic accident, why does the truth feel so hard to get to? We may not have full answers yet, but we're going to keep watching this case because Nolan Wells deserves the truth, and so does his family. If this case has you thinking, drop your thoughts down in the comment below. I want to know what you think really happened out on that island. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to Crime Files with that bell icon turned on, because we cover cases like this every single week, and you do not want to miss what's coming next.